Y'all ready for this?
Bravo.
Welcome to Sports Kid Drama Kid. I'm Jim. I'm the Sports Kid.
I'm Andi. I'm the Drama Kid.
Andi, the Super Bowl is going to be this next weekend. We don't know who's going to be in it because we're recording this beforehand. But the Super Bowl is coming, and we're going to do an episode today about Super Bowl ticket scandals.
Oh, okay.
One in particular, but we're going to start with a little background on like Super Bowl ticketing and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And then we'll get into the main story, which is one about the LA Rams and then the St. Louis Rams and sort of the drama of that.
Okay.
Have you ever heard anything about that?
I mean, they were the LA Rams and then they were the St. Louis Rams and now they're the LA Rams again?
Yeah, it's pretty much that.
Okay.
This team moved around. But as you've learned on this show, when teams and stuff are moving around, usually that means there's interpersonal drama.
Yeah, for sure.
Between wealthy people.
Yeah, it's a bunch of like wealthy guys who are like, but I want a team in my town.
In this case, a wealthy woman.
I love that for her. Love that for her.
Yeah, so we'll get into that story. But I do want to start today's episode with a brief history of people using tickets in general.
Oh, okay.
Going way back to the beginning here. And in order to do that, I will read a little thing.
Was it to see Shakespeare plays at the Globe?
But kind of. Some historians suggest that ticketing began in ancient Rome. But if you're one of those Roman Empire guys, you already knew that. For the rest of us, tickets were likely small tiles or shards or glass or clay, which have been since named tessera. These little tokens likely got you admission to Roman amphitheaters and eventually the Colosseum.
Or you could just commit a crime and then you could be in the show.
Yeah. That's how you got your break. Pillage and steal loaves of bread. And then you can fight a lion.
Yeah, exactly.
The Colosseum was massive and seated anywhere between 45 and 80,000 people. There were 80 arches leading to each section of the Colosseum, so people likely had seats that they needed to find, and they were labeled by their proximity to these different arches, which is sort of like an early stadium seating events map sort of thing. Also, a fun Colosseum fact, apparently going to events there was very safe because they had trained archers perched around the building that would shoot threatening animals and people.
Who were trying to get into the Coliseum?
Or just like causing a ruckus while there.
Oh my God.
This detail made me imagine archers on the roof of Soldier Field. The Jumbotron just reads, if you see something, say something. Text your complaint to 999-ARROW and one of our trained archers will assist you immediately.
Oh my God.
In order to learn these facts about the Coliseum, I watched a video of PBS's Rick Steves talking about the Coliseum. And I have to play you a clip of the end of his little Coliseum segment that I watched because something about the content and Rick's delivery really upset me.
Ancient Romans, whose taste for violence exceeded even modern America's, came to the Colosseum to unwind. Gladiators, criminals, and wild animals fought to the death, providing the public with a festival of gore. To celebrate the Colosseum's grand opening, Romans were treated to the slaughter of 5,000 animals.
Oh my God.
It just ends on that. So folksy.
It's very folksy, and the overall tone is like, and people would come and they would hang out and they'd have a snack and really enjoy themselves while other people got murdered.
Yes, other people and animals.
Rick Steves. I'm glad he made it onto the podcast.
The Colosseum was where ticketing may have begun in general, but in America, the first sport that spectators paid to see was horse racing. In 1823, 50,000 people watched a race at the Union Course on Long Island, and there were premium seats available that people must have paid for. By 1829, the track was upgraded and the new owner enclosed the grounds entirely for the first time. charging everyone $0.25 to enter and $3 to park a horse and buggy.
Parking was still expensive then.
Yes. Side note, many of those horse races were harness races. Harness racing was kind of looked at as like the people's race, like the way they look at stock car racing in the early days, where anyone with a horse or a working car in that case could race it later on that day. By day, old Cinnamon would pull the plow. By night, she'd become Lightning McQueen, but a horse. So it was the sport of the people.
Cinnamon.
Then America invented baseball, and at the time, people actually wanted to watch it. Union Grounds in Brooklyn was the first enclosed baseball stadium with seats and paid tickets. In many ways, putting walls around a stadium and asking people to pay to see the action was actually the very beginning of professional sports. When people paid to watch a team, you had money being made off of the game, and then the players wanted that money, or some of that money. And then you get professionalism.
And yet, in theater,
no one gets paid.
You put everybody in a building and you pay them a fee, and the actors still make no money.
Yep. Before the internet, ticketing didn't change all that much from what it was in those early days. Events sold paper tickets that you would pick up from the box office or receive in the mail, and then you'd go to the event. One thing to mention that did happen naturally was the formation of two different ticket markets, the direct market and then the secondary market. The primary market is when you buy tickets from the teams or the leagues. Secondary market is when you buy tickets from someone who already bought them from the official place.
Yeah.
Reselling tickets like this is often called scalping. And again, before the internet, this was most commonly done around stadiums while trying to evade law enforcement. Some countries have strict limitations on secondary markets. The U.S. is not one of those. We have some laws, but they vary by state and sometimes city by city on that type of stuff. Now, in the era of the internet, we have Ticketmaster and then a bunch of secondary market websites with enormous fees. The scams these days look a lot more like modern internet scams, with people pretending to be legit on the internet, but they aren't. Fraudsters will make fake copies of digital tickets that won't work when you get to the stadium, or they'll push naive users to fake websites where they'll be sold completely non-existent tickets. One of the most common internet ticket rackets is using AI bots to buy tons of tickets to a popular event, only to turn those around and resell them immediately on the StubHubs of the world. A popular Super Bowl ticket scam of yore and sort of today was to sell out-of-town fans a Super Bowl trip that doesn't include the actual ticket.
Oh my God.
So like bus, hotel, all that stuff. And I mentioned the Super Bowl because for the rest of this episode, we're going to focus on the annual football extravaganza and one particular Super Bowl ticket story.
Okay.
Before we get into that singular story, let's talk about Super Bowl ticket pricing.
As a former box office professional, this really just like invigorates me.
What was the Super Bowl ticket of local theater tickets?
Oh, I mean, at the theater that I worked at, we had an absolutely beautiful production of Raisin in the Sun that ran so long, like way longer than we intended it to. And people could not get a ticket for that and got very mad at me over the phone. There is a whole genre of person who is usually older and white and has a lot of money and calls you on the phone, and you can literally hear classical music playing in the background, like you can hear WFMT, like the local classical. This would happen all the time, and then you would answer the phone, and then they would be like, I'm desperate to see theater, and you'd be like, I'm sorry, you can't, and they'd be like, I am so mad at you personally.
As you can imagine, the Super Bowl ticket is like the most sought after ticket outside of like, I don't know, Taylor Swift ticket or something.
Yeah.
But it happens every year. So it's just always the most popular thing. And it grows in popularity along with the sport of football. According to an article that listed all the ticket prices through the years and then like adjusted them for inflation, Super Bowl tickets from 1967 until the mid 80s increased from around $100 in today's money up to like $150, $160. Then it started to jump significantly, and by the end of the 90s, the tickets were around $600 for today's adjusted rates. So, huge jump there. After that, it went up even more to around $1,500 a ticket on average by 2014. And then they've gone up even more, and now the average price is $8,000 to $10,000.
Oh my God.
For just getting a seat.
I don't love anything enough. I mean, it's not that I have that kind of money, but I don't I don't know that I would ever, even if I had the money, love anything enough to pay that much.
Yeah.
To have an ethereal experience in the sense that I can't keep it and hold it
unless
forever.
I had just the disposable income like crazy, I wouldn't.
I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever get to a point where like my memories are enough.
It would be cool if your team was in the game and this is like once in a lifetime and you've always wanted to do
I'm also a bad example because I don't want to go to a professional football game ever for any amount of money.
And like probably any concert for that much money you wouldn't want to do either.
No, not if it's going to be in a space with that many people.
So as you can imagine, a ticket with that kind of value is a limited resource that people have tried to make money off of over the years.
Not shocking.
On this podcast, we've mentioned a few seedy NFL figures that have gotten wrapped up in Super Bowl ticketing scams before, and we mentioned these in passing. One was 2005. Mike Tice was the Minnesota Vikings coach that was involved in the Love Boat thing or was fired around that time. This story was Tice getting caught selling tickets in 2005 that he was given as an NFL head coach at an inflated price. And he also encouraged other people to sell their tickets to an agency that he had affiliations with.
Oh, God.
So he was trying to...
Don't give them to your friends and family.
No.
I'll take them.
Also, from our Bountygate episode, remember Michael Ornstein? He's been mentioned a bunch of times for various things. He was the guy who
like sent emails from jail.
Yeah. He was
right?
Reggie Bush's marketing agent who was involved in a lot of criminal activity. He was also in our Patreon episode about the NFL Wraps. He was somehow involved in the Raiders Silver and Black music video. He's a marketing guy he's
really diversified. He's all over the place.
He's on the fringes of the NFL and always up to something. I'll have you read a little thing about his ticketing scandal.
A marketing agent with ties to the New Orleans Saints has pleaded guilty to conspiring to scalp Super Bowl tickets. Mike Ornstein faces sentencing January 24th in Cleveland federal court. He also pleaded guilty in June to selling jerseys with the false claim that NFL players had worn them during games. He admitted buying Super Bowl tickets for more than their face value from people who purchased them at face value from their employers. He then resold the tickets for a profit. The jerseys came with fraudulent certificates that NFL players had worn the items, according to documents on file in the U.S. District Court. Ornstein is a former marketing agent for Reggie Bush and a frequent presence at Saints practices and games. He became close to Coach Sean Payton, great guy, who credited Ornstein in his book with helping the team win the Super Bowl. Ornstein agreed to surrender $350,000 made in the ventures from 1998 to 2006. That is such a long time, including jerseys for the Browns and their home opponents.
Yeah, we are just collecting Mike Ornstein stories from over the years.
I think it's so funny when people who... You're already Reggie Bush's marketing agent, so you have to be doing well for yourself. He's a famous football player.
You've made it in your career.
You kind of like have to almost respect the hustle a little bit, just a little bit, to be like, you're already making plenty of money, but you're like, at every turn, you're like, I could be making more money.
We could do this a little bit more. Where's an opportunity?
Like, you just see everything as an opportunity to make more money. I mean, that's a real hustler's spirit.
Oh, yeah.
It's, illegal and bad, but it does entertain me.
Yes. All right. For today's main story, I want to focus on something that involves a Super Bowl ticket scheme, but that's really only part of it.
Okay.
And the first thing I want to do is introduce you to a woman named Georgia Frontiere, or Frontiere. I think we'll just say Frontiere for this. It's one of those names that, depending on if you're asking her at different times of her life or different people, they'll all say her last name differently.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think she had sort of corrected media or whatever over the years.
She says it differently?
I think she says like Frontiere or Frontier, but it's Frontiere.
Okay.
Frontiere.
This is like technically Guy Fieri's name is Guy Fieri.
Yeah.
But like that just sounds too fancy for Guy Fieri.
In the 1940s, she was still known as Georgia Lee Irwin, and she grew up with a music and show business family. Her mom was an eccentric performer who did a show called The Musical Pirates. And I'm going to play you a little story from PBS St. Louis about her mom.
Okay.
Lucia.
I got to thinking about another St. Louis woman who moved from music to space travel. At least that's what she said. Lucia Pamela was, by the way, the mother of former St. Louis Rams owner Georgia Frontiere. But Lucia Pamela's real claim to fame was her trip to the moon, ahead of Neil Armstrong.
What?
Her Wikipedia entry describes her as a musician and an eccentric.
Oh, we have landed on the moon. I'm so excited. I see people. Must be the moon people.
Oh, and I didn't mention that while she was on the moon, she recorded a record album. The late Lucia Pamela, she died in 2002 at the age of 98, was known for her quirky songs and her quirky personality. She spent the first part of her life in St. Louis, where her daughter Georgia was born and raised. But Lucia didn't make the album until she was 65 years old and living in Fresno, California. And I wanted to know about the early days in St. Louis that led her to the moon. And we found out a lot of facts as well as plenty of twists and turns. That's her. That's her. This might be her. We'll get to that. But separating fact from fiction, that became the problem. Because after all, this was someone who said she went to the moon in early 1969.
Oh, I see animals. Let's take a walk on the moon. Come on.
Recorded an album and then later put out a companion coloring book.
Oh my God. I am obsessed with this woman. I hope to one day have one of my main ways people describe me as an eccentric, which is not a job.
So good. So good. Anyway, that's a little look at her mom, just sort of giving you an idea of Georgia's background and what she grew up around.
There were so many things I loved about that. First of all, the guy who's like going through like microfilm on his like weird library device. I'm like, that's you.
Oh yeah, that's me. That's like exactly what I do for this show.
Yeah.
But I just look at newspapers.com.
You haven't gone to
internet.
like a microfilm situation,
Not
but
yet.
I feel like we're so close
Not
to that.
yet. Yeah.
And I also just, I love this woman who's just like, let's go to the moon. Like, we don't have enough of those people anymore.
I've been there. Like, no, you haven't.
Oh, yeah. Also, this video was like, we were trying to figure out if she had really been on the moon. I was like, she wasn't. I don't know why.
She was singing about aliens.
There's no question. She literally, there's no recording studio on the moon where she can be like, oh my God, here comes a moon person. I love this one. We don't have enough of these kinds of women anymore. It reminds me of Carol Channing. Jam tomorrow, jam yesterday. No? Okay.
No, that doesn't ring.
We'll watch
a
it
bell.
later.
Okay.
We'll watch it later.
Jam tomorrow, jam yesterday, but never ever jam today.
According to an article in the Victory Journal about Georgia that I referenced for this story in this episode, in 1955, Georgia started performing herself. And Andi, I'll have you read another little passage from that article now.
In 1955, she started working as a chorus girl, first with the Sacramento Music Circus, and then in Las Vegas at the Silver Slipper Casino. Though the period of her life lasted only a few years and the details are murky, if not contested, she would from that point forward regularly be described as a, quote, former chorus girl. In the first half of the 20th century, the term, quote, chorus girl signified not just a line of work, but a sexually charged archetype sought out by powerful men, sort of like today's, quote, IG model.
What are your thoughts on the chorus girl moniker?
I didn't know that that was like a thing. To me, chorus girl is just like a woman who's not talented enough to be the lead.
Oh.
Which, to be clear, I'm a chorus girl. I didn't know that it had the connotation of like, I don't know, auga. Let's just say. I love.
Sing me a chorus. Woo.
This is just so funny. This whole thing is so funny. And I can't believe that there is a direct parallel between sports and drama in this episode.
Couple little funny things about that time that I was reading. Georgia's fourth husband was actually the stage manager at the Sacramento Music Circus, and that marriage didn't last long. What do you think about dating a stage manager from the Sacramento Music Circus?
I myself have not dated a stage manager. Dating the stage manager is interesting because the stage manager is really kind of like the boss.
Are you having to show up early to things?
No, I feel like if anything, if you're dating the stage manager, you could probably be late and get a pass, and everyone in the cast probably hates you. You know what I mean?
Fair
like,
enough, yeah.
I guarantee you that there were other chorus girls who were probably like, Georgia never has her character shoes. And the stage manager just doesn't care.
What are character shoes?
Character shoes.
Are they just shoes that you wear for the show?
Yes, they are these. So they are a shoe with a heel and a strap that is sort of neutral looking, but is also very like classic theater. Usually you practice in these shoes and then you get like shoes that are more authentic for like the period that the show is in. But I certainly did a bunch of shows fully performing in character shoes. It's basically like they're a shoe you can like dance in and move in and, you know, play a secretary from the 20s in.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I get it. By her late 20s, Georgia moved to Miami and became a lounge singer and a TV personality.
Oh my God.
She briefly hosted her own talk show, and for a bit, she was on NBC's Today Show. We love a morning TV news show.
We do. We really do. It's the best news source.
Well, in Miami in 1957, she went to a party hosted by JFK's dad, Joseph Kennedy.
Oh my God.
And that's where she met a man named Carol Rosenblum for the first time.
Honestly, during this time, if you were an attractive woman, you could just like go anywhere and do anything.
I'm going to a party with the Kennedys.
I'm serious. Like, listen, look at her career is literally like she was I'm assuming, a beautiful woman who like was probably very charismatic and very flirtatious and very fun. And therefore she ended up with the Kennedys.
Yeah.
And on TV.
Right. So she meets Carol Rosenblum at this party at the Kennedys. Carol owned the Baltimore Colts at the time. They fell in love even though they were both married, and they got engaged in 1960. So 1957 to 1960, they were like in cahoots while married. They had 2 kids, but weren't married until 1966 because Carol had a bitter divorce with his previous wife. So this was like, they were engaged, but it was going for like 6 years before they got married officially. Carol Rosenblum was a Maryland native who built his fortune making clothes for the military during World War II.
Wow.
Yeah. He owned the Baltimore Colts. Robert Ursay had just bought the LA Rams in 1972. To save money on taxes somehow, Rosenblum and Ursay traded teams, and Rosenblum moved from Baltimore to LA. This was something I looked into a little bit and then just didn't want to understand.
Yeah, no. That's
but
fair.
basically, they swapped teams because it made more sense financially.
Okay.
So Robert Ursay, who still owns the Colts, owns the Indianapolis Colts now.
Still.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Carol Rosenblum had the LA Rams.
Gotcha.
So
can you imagine, like, there's no loyalty there. The 2 guys that own the team, like all the fans are so devoted to the team and the players are so devoted to the team. And the 2 guys who are at the very top are like, I'll get a tax break
team's a team.
if we switch.
Yeah,
so let's just switch.
Yeah. You think the guy's there forever to build that team.
Like they're in the lunchroom and it's like, I have this sandwich and I have that. Let's just swap.
I'll swap them. Salami for ham. So Rosenblum has been described as the NFL's first modern owner and the first players owner. Rosenblum was part of the NFL inner circle that negotiated the league's network TV contracts with NBC and CBS and the AFL-NFL merger, which we've mentioned a little bit on this show, both of which contributed to professional football becoming both profitable and the most watched sport in the country.
So it's his fault.
Yeah, he definitely was like a business pioneer for the NFL.
Interesting. Noted.
As a successful owner based out of LA, Rosenblum was well connected. And according to some accounts, maybe a bit too connected in ways that he shouldn't have been. Rosenblum was running the Rams until one spring day in 1979. And to show you what happened that day, I'm going to play a clip from an old PBS Frontline doc called The Unauthorized History of the NFL.
Okay.
This doc is not liked by the NFL and was kind of like...
That means it's probably accurate.
Yeah, it was kind of debated whether or not it was true, even at the time. But we're going to play it because it is like part of the record of this story.
Okay.
Rosenblum shared Chesler's passion for betting on football. He used to bet against his own team, the Baltimore Colts. and was even accused of fixing games by leaving key players at home. In 1972, Rosenblum sold the Colts and bought the LA Rams, but he continued to play with fire, placing huge bets with mafia-linked bookies.
Oh, no.
Well, he placed a big bet with us. Between Gil, Beckley, and Marty Skarloff, we had to lay it off all over the country. And I laid off $200,000 of it, and Gil and Marty handled laying off the rest of it. It was a total of $1 million.
Rosenblum used a bagman to courier his illegal bets in and out of Las Vegas. Identical briefcases would be exchanged in front of a newsstand. Victor Weiss was the man who carried Rosenblum's cash and placed his bets. But one day, in this hotel parking lot, homicide detectives found him dead.
Oh, no.
He'd been shot in the head and bundled into the trunk of a red Rolls-Royce.
Oh, my God.
He had what appeared to be a close relation with the Rams. He used to spend Sundays on the home games in the Rams press box.
If he's betting either for himself or someone else, there are heavy wagers in the sports bookmaking, in particular the NFL.
The murder of Weiss prompted questions about Rosenblum's own death just 2 months earlier. This is Golden Beach in Florida. Every year, Carol Rosenblum would come here, and every morning he would swim in the ocean. Until one day in April 1979, he drowned. His death still puzzles his son, Steve.
Here's a man that spent most of the 72 years in or around the water. In fact, had lived on that stretch of beach for about 8 years or so, and knew the ocean well. He knew undertows and the currents, and could handle himself very well in the water. And I just don't recall him ever going into the water by himself. My own feeling is, with all these circumstances and questions still in my mind, I don't believe that his death was accidental.
Gino Tropiano has heard the story that's common in criminal circles.
I think he was more or less murdered. He was held underwater until he drowned.
Wow, this is juicy.
This takes a little bit of a crime turn.
It sure does.
Yeah, so Rosenblum dies, as the doc said, while swimming in the ocean at his property. Yeah, and they look into it, and basically they determine, like, there was no foul play, that he just drowned.
This was what, 1983?
79.
Yeah, how good were, like, forensics at that time?
Exactly. Like, it's kind of up in the air of what happened. There's not much more.
It's possible that he did. Things happen.
Yeah.
People drown in water.
So after Rosenblum died, it was presumed that his son Steve, who they showed there, would take over the team for him of the Rams. Here's a news article just a few days after the drowning that I'll have you read from.
In 1956, at the age of 12, Steve Rosenblum began his life in football as assistant equipment manager with the Baltimore Colts during training camp and weekends. Now, at age 34, he is expected to become the head of the Los Angeles Rams, one of the most highly successful National Football League franchises. But the circumstances have left the Georgetown University graduate and many others deeply saddened. His father, Carol Rosenblum, 72, owner of the Rams for 5 years, drowned Monday off the Florida coast where he was vacationing. And, barring a shocking turnaround in plans the elder Rosenblum had set into motion years ago, the reins of the Rams will soon be passed along to Carol's son, whose title since 1974 has been Assistant to the President. Asked in a recent interview what would happen to the franchise when he died, Carol said, "My policies would be the same. My son Steve believes as I do. And after him, we've got another one, 14 years old, Chip, who believes the way we both believe. So we will continue to win. That you can be sure of." Rams public relations director Jerry Wilcox reaffirmed Rosenblum's commitment to keep the team in the family. Carol said many times that the team would remain in the Rosenblum family, Wilcox said. I love people who sort of pull from the idea of like a royal family ruling, basically, of just like, I'm going to give it to my son. And then there's another one coming up the ranks too. So don't worry. We'll keep winning.
Keep doing
as
it.
if like the genetics of your family are what
keep it going.
Keep it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like not just the money and the privilege to actually do it.
Right. I mean, I will say, obviously, his son had clearly been working in the organization, so it makes sense to pass
All right.
it.
So you read that. However, what actually happens is he leaves 70% of his ownership stake in the Rams to his wife, Georgia. Steve and the kids get 30%.
She got that chorus girl energy.
Yeah. Again, I think this probably had something to do with taxes and like passing down the most money.
You pay less taxes if you leave your business to a woman.
Yeah. I don't know. Something like that. Here's a really good article about Georgia's takeover by Robert Kaiser of the New York Times from December of 1979. I'll have you read this as well.
Okay.
This gets into how Georgia actually ends up taking the team.
And this surprised everybody, right? Like,
yeah.
Carol Rosenblum had been saying for years that he had, and then like when they actually went into the actual documentation of his estate, wow, that had to suck for his son. Yeah. She has also weathered questions raised involving the death of her husband and been embroiled in a messy confrontation with CR's son, D. Steve Rosenblum, whom she fired as manager of the Rams' football fortunes. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Steve was not only the most popular man on the club, he was a ball player's owner, the kind who drank beer and swore good and drove the team bus himself. And Georgia was, in some respects, an exotic figure. Man, her mother was described as an eccentric. She's eccentric.
Exotic.
She's described as exotic. Something of an easy target. But perhaps there was more to it than that in the case of Georgia Rosenblum. For the press had asked and answered questions about Georgia's past personal affairs that they had never asked about any other owner in the NFL. Welcome to being a woman. So you're like a really important business person now. Who have you had sex with?
Yeah, we need to know.
Could it have been that a lot of people just didn't see a woman taking charge of a pro football team any more than they could see one taking active command of a battleship?
Okay.
Okay. This article is doing its best for the time.
The thing that men do, battleships.
People just couldn't see a woman managing a football team or being a surgeon. Could it have been that the fans and the press, as well as the coaches and the players, hadn't come far enough yet in the peculiar relearning process that American males are undergoing in this post-liberation era to accept a woman's leadership of the Rams in any active capacity? Yeah, that's it. Yeah, bingo. Was Georgia simply the wife who had become the usurper of a football team? Or was she something relatively new on the American scene, a sports tycoon, a business mogul who happened to be a woman, and who was, therefore, not permitted the eccentricities that went with the state of tycoonhood? I mean, maybe she killed her husband, but also, more likely than not, that's probably what was happening. Everyone was like, oh, I'm sorry, a woman's in charge? She must have murdered her husband in order to do that.
I did have that thought. It's unclear on what actually happened there. All signs point to Carol Rosenblum just died in the ocean accidentally.
Yeah.
There were the mob connections, as that piece said.
Yeah.
Gambling connections. And then there's Georgia, who stands to gain this franchise. But she doesn't seem like that, really.
I don't know,
She's
man.
an eccentric. Her mom wrote about being on the moon when she wasn't.
I will say, though, both her mother being the kind of person who wrote a song about being on the moon when she wasn't, that takes guts, almost an insane level of like self-belief and guts. And so did she pass that along to her daughter? I don't know. We don't know enough about Georgia yet to know if that's true. Based on her personal history, it does appear that she was somebody who could find a way to like gain influence and power just by being herself, which like good for you, Georgia. Well, then there's also the detail of the guy who was actually making the bets got murdered and stuffed into the back of a car. Let's not forget that detail.
So he was one person removed from people getting murdered.
None of these signs necessarily point to Georgia doing anything shady in this situation, but it is a pretty fucked up situation.
Yeah, and she does stand to benefit from it all in some way.
She does.
Then I found another article from December of 1979 with an update about Steve. This is short.
Steve Rosenbloom is leaving the, quote, soap atmosphere at the Los Angeles Rams front office. Fired earlier this season by his stepmother, Georgia Rosenbloom, Steve becomes executive vice president of the New Orleans Saints. When his late father, Carroll Rosenbloom, drowned, it was assumed Steve would inherit the Rams. He didn't. Georgia did. Thus, the 34-year-old Rosenbloom goes way down yonder in New Orleans to continue his career.
So Steve leaves in a huff, and the family is flabbergasted that Georgia did this to them.
I would imagine. I mean, you also have to take into account, like, did he get hired by New Orleans because he was good at his job on the Rams, or
Probably.
just because of the name or whatever? I'm trying to figure out why Georgia ousted him. Probably just to protect her authority over everything. But it doesn't look great, although it's the kind of like bold, upsetting move that, like, if a man did it.
Yeah, like what's his name in Oklahoma City? Clay.
Oh yeah, Clay whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, Clay Bennett.
People would still be critical of it, obviously, but I don't know that anyone would be like,
Yeah. Did you murder someone to get this?
Yeah, exactly. Like a woman's in power and they're like, who did you kill or who did you have sex with?
Yeah. So despite all the controversy around Georgia getting the Rams, she takes over.
Okay.
In 1980, Georgia married her final husband, composer, arranger, and jazz accordionist, Dominic Frontiere.
I love this. The variety of men.
Yeah.
And I can't.
This is when Georgia becomes Georgia Frontiere, which is the name she kept throughout her life after that. Background on Dominic Frontiere, because we can't completely ignore jazz accordionist.
Surely not.
Here's a video of Dominic Frontiere, jazz accordionist, playing I'll Be Seeing You on his jazz accordion.
Famous jazz standard. I'd eat a plate of pasta to this.
Anyway.
The higher notes are a little too shrill. Like, I can understand having like an accordion moment in a song like this, like a little solo section, but the whole song is
he's
ambitious.
Pushing it with jazz accordion.
The thing about an accordion is that it is a very impressive instrument because you're doing so many things at once. You're playing the notes, you're doing the actual like accordion part of the accordion. So like it's cool to watch and you like kind of can't believe someone can do that. But then the sound that comes out of it, you're like, but
that's good on like an indie rock song in the background.
Yeah, or like if you're like doing the polka.
Yeah, of course.
Or if you're Weird Al.
Weird Al gets
a pass
on this show. Dominic also wrote music for TV shows and movies and stuff like that as like part of his main job.
Cool.
And he wrote the TV show theme for The Outer Limits, among others.
Never heard of it.
For the next hour, sit quietly and we will control all that you see and hear. We repeat, there is nothing wrong with your television set. You are about to participate in a great adventure. You are about to experience the awe and mystery which reaches from the inner mind to the outer limits.
I did not know that show existed, and it is like absolutely a Twilight Zone ripoff. But looks cool. I'd definitely like take an edible and watch it.
Yeah, definitely. Often dubbed the first female owner of an NFL franchise, the league actually reported that Georgia Frontiere was actually the second female majority owner. Violet Bidwell Wolfner inherited the Chicago Cardinals after her husband died in 1947 and owned the Chicago franchise until she died in 1962. However, during Georgia's tenure, she was the only active female majority owner in the NFL.
Okay.
So
another woman also killed her husband.
Initially criticized and harassed for being a woman in a league dominated by men and for not being capable of running a football team, Frontiere quickly asserted control of the Rams and addressed her detractors during her first press conference, where she said, "There are some who feel there are two different kinds of people, human beings and women." So,
You know, I'm rooting for her. I don't care if she killed her husband. I am rooting for her.
The Rams finally reached Super Bowl 14, but lost to the 3-time champion Pittsburgh Steelers, 31-19. After that Super Bowl, Frontiere increased her national profile, appearing on Sports Illustrated covers and in Amex commercials with Rams players. So this is the SI cover.
That's so tame.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess Sports Illustrated didn't start getting like horny until
maybe a little later or in specific issues.
Because this is now like an actual sports magazine. Yeah. Okay.
It says Madam Ram gets her man, and it's with quarterback Burt Jones.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Amex commercial.
Do you know me? I play an important position on the Los Angeles Rams.
Oh my God.
I own them, and that's a big financial responsibility. That's why I carry the American Express card. After all, I don't just watch the offensive line and the defensive line. I have to watch the bottom line.
Oh, you got it.
To apply for a card, look for this display wherever the card is welcomed.
The American Express card! Don't leave home without it.
Okay, I love her. She is the Mary Tyler Moore of football. I love her.
So by the mid-1980s, Frontiere has passed much of the Rams' daily functional football stuff off to other executives. Then in 1986, we have yet another Super Bowl ticket scandal with yet another one of Georgia's husbands.
Oh my
This time,
God.
Dominic was arrested.
Dominic, no.
He was jailed for 10 months for lying to a government agent as part of a federal investigation that came from allegedly scalping 1,000 Super Bowl tickets.
He was hiding them inside his accordion.
Yeah. I'll have you read again about this ticketing scandal from an article in the LA Times.
Federal prosecutors on Monday gave their first detailed account of the roles played by Los Angeles Rams owner Georgia Frontiere and her husband, Dominic, in dealing with Rams tickets to the 1980 Super Bowl game that were scalped or not otherwise accounted for. Dominic Frontiere has pleaded guilty to charges that he willfully filed a false income tax return and lied to Internal Revenue Service investigators to cover up his role in scalping the tickets. He is awaiting sentencing. Georgia Frontiere has not been charged with any crime. The prosecutors made no allegation that she knew that Dominic was scalping the tickets. She and Dominic were engaged at the time of the Super Bowl, married later that year, and filed a joint income tax return for that year. The prosecutors characterized Dominic Frontiere, an Emmy Award-winning Hollywood composer, as a, quote, a major white-collar criminal who made $500,000 from the scalping. They said that in arranging for the scalping, Dominic Frontiere told an intermediary, Raymond Cohen, that he expected to have access to Super Bowl tickets for years to come, and that if all went well, he could supply Cohen with tickets to sell for a long time. Prosecutors, however, provided no evidence that the scalping continued. Again, this is a situation where you are a successful person in entertainment, and your wife is incredibly successful in sports and business. You have enough money. And yet you're like, I also have access for free to a thing that everybody wants.
The funny thing about this is like Dominic Frontiere is like a jazz accordionist guy.
I know.
So maybe he's more of an artist. Maybe he has less money than like his super rich owner wife. So he's trying to like make money or provide for his family or whatever. And the way that he decides to do it is to like sell illegally his wife's high-priced ticket prize.
Yeah, it's not great. The other thing too is like, as a right-brained artist myself, I can never commit financial crime because I can't do the books. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, in order to do that, you have to at least be like really good at like the numbers and administrative details of that. And I'm not saying that he's not, but like, I don't know if like accordion player and like bookkeeper are in the same person.
Probably
you know what
not. Yeah. He needs some help with that.
Yeah.
So in 1987, the pair divorce. Frontiere and Dominic. She keeps the name and keeps having the name.
Yeah, because she probably doesn't want to go back to... I mean, how many names has she had at this point?
Quite a few, yeah.
Yeah.
So the Rams played at Anaheim Stadium in California from 1980 all the way till 1994. And this is when Georgia wanted to move the team back to St. Louis, where she came from. And she was able to do that, much to the chagrin of LA fans. who was like, hey, you're not supporting our franchise here.
Yeah. Her reasoning was just she wanted to just move it to where she was from.
Yeah, I think so. And there was probably, money to be made, but I think it was mostly like, we want to bring a team back
right,
to
because
St.
at that
Louis.
time, St. Louis didn't have an NFL team.
No. This is a press conference from moving the team.
They made a giant contract to sign.
It's hard to write bigger than Freeman Bosley, but I tried to do the best I could. What do you think of this tie? Can you all see this tie? It's the Ram logo. Doesn't say Los Angeles, doesn't say St. Louis, but in a few months it's going to say St. Louis Rams right above the logo. Let me just tell you, I've got 5,000 of these in the trunk of my car, so any of you who want to talk to me after the press conference, I'll be out in the parking lot. Ago, when we lost the Big Red, St. Louis was wounded. Our pride was wounded. Our ego was wounded. Quite frankly, our image was diminished nationwide. But the mayor and I and Dick Gebhardt, we created Fans Inc. about a year ago now, and we started the long journey again to get a football team here. And we've taken it from the 1 yard line, 98 yards to the other 1 yard line, and we're right on the verge of a touchdown. And today I can tell you that with the help of Mr. Football, and not with the help of Georgia Frontiere, who I'm going to name Ms. Football, with their help, the wound is healed. How does it feel?
I don't think I've been this happy since the last game we won. I've had about 10 pages of notes, and I won't bore you with everything, but there's a lot in my mind and a lot in my heart. St. Louis and I have a lot in common. We've both shown our good faith in each other, faith in the future together. We've both made a very bold move, one that neither of us has taken lightly. We're embarking on a journey together that gives us the opportunity to move forward with great pride. St. Louis, you have a stadium that is nearly ready. A lot of things have to be done to make it what we really want, but we have visions. And by the same token, a lot of things will have to happen to make the Rams the team that we all envision. And I'm going to make sure that those begin the minute this conference is over.
There's probably some more good stuff, but
She is pretty and poised, I got to say. Definitely a better public speaker than whoever the hell that guy was before who was supposed to be introducing her.
So the St. Louis Rams went on to win a Super Bowl in 2000. This was actually the Super Bowl where the Tennessee Titans guy reached out at the goal line and came up short.
Oh, that was sad
Yeah,
to
the other side of
watch.
that was Kurt Warner taking the Rams to the Super Bowl. This was the team that was the greatest show on turf, I think. That's what they were called because they were playing in that domed stadium in St. Louis that she referred to.
That was like brand new.
Brand new at the time. I think it wasn't as brand new when they actually won.
Sure.
But they were very fast and they played on AstroTurf and they threw the ball a lot. So they were just like this very high paced team.
Gotcha.
So Georgia died in 2008 at the age of 80. The Rams did end up moving back to Los Angeles in 2016, and they've been there since, and they won a Super Bowl at SoFi Stadium, their huge new LA stadium that they share with the Chargers. But
You know what I have to say about that. One of you, either the Rams or the Chargers, needs to change your colors. I am so sorry about this, but they are so similar to each other, and you play in the same stadium.
I think that's why they do that, though, because the branding is all similar.
I know, but it's confusing for me, so I would like one of them to change.
But yeah, the Rams were in St. Louis because of Georgia, and that was like the legacy that she sort of had. All right, last thing. Georgia was also sort of an eccentric like her mom. She also did other artsy, creative things, and she was a writer and sort of novelist.
Oh, nice.
In some of her free time. And in 2014, her kids actually published one of her mystery novels.
Oh, cool.
Like sort of posthumously
Yeah.
for her. And I actually bought a copy to give to you as a gift.
Are you serious? Oh my God. This is the best. Oh my God. I was literally about to say I want to read it.
All right, I had to get up.
This is such a special surprise.
So this is Horoscope, The Astrology Murders.
Oh my God.
A novel by Georgia Frontiere.
I could not be more excited to read this. I was gonna want to read it anyway, but the fact that it's an astrology murder novel. Oh my God. Look at that like antique key on the front. Oh my God.
Yep.
So do you want me to read the back of
it? Sure.
Who wants to kill Kelly York? Dr. Elizabeth York has spent her life helping people solve their problems. A celebrity astrologer and psychologist with a devoted following, she now finds herself in the unlikely and terrifying position of helping the police and the FBI determine the identity of a serial killer who just may be targeting her.
Uh-oh.
Is this like the Zodiac killer? Whatever.
Sort of.
No matter how careful she is, Kelly knows that she will have to confront darkness, an energy so black it could challenge everything she believes in. Until now, Kelly has lived a comfortable, fulfilling life in her Upper West Side brownstone with her housekeeper, Emma, and her loyal Siberian Husky, King, by her side. Yet when 4 beautiful young women are found murdered, astrological signs carved into their thighs. Oh! She is drawn into a mystery whose clues may lead back to an astrological reading. Sorry, I'm so excited.
I can tell.
An astrological reading gone terribly awry. Also, I did drown my husband so that I could have the team.
Oh, wow. Right there on the back of the book.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, my God. I love this. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. That just about does it for this episode of Sports Kid Drama Kid. If you like the show, you can leave us a review where you listen. That would be very helpful.
Please, yes.
And we also have a Patreon, which is a place where you can get bonus episodes.
Yes.
And I think Patreon's going to be where we'll be a little bit more interactive or whatever, because there's video and stuff we can post there. But the bonus audio episodes that we post on Patreon will now be on Apple subscription too. So if you listen there and that's easier for you, you can sign up for the extra stuff on Apple too.
And at some point, I'll have to do a dramatic reading of some of Horoscope, the astrology murders. Look, this book is in pretty pristine condition. Binding has not been broken. Whoever had this did not read it.
No. All right, we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.